Mr. Longfellow, would you give us
Certainly, Mr. Mayor.
our usual good work in providing us with the national anthem? Thank you, Joel.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons' command. Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Mr. Longfellow. Appreciate your services again this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure.
At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our new Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Scott Louie. Scott comes to Port Colborne, a former Port Colborne resident with more than 14 years experience with the Township of Wainfleet. We're very happy to have Scott, and I can tell you he started work July 5th and he hasn't stopped. He's really sinking his teeth into it and jumping in with 3 feet, in fact. Scott, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Could I have a motion to confirm the agenda? Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We have the adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 16/15 held on June 22nd, 2015. Okay. We skipped disclosures of interest. This is very important. Are there any disclosures of interest here this evening? There being none, that shall be noted. Now we call for the adoption of the minutes. Moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Bogner. Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Now, moving on to determination of items requiring separate discussion. Are there any items someone wishes to? Councillor Desmarais?
Item number 5, please, Mr. Mayor.
Number 5. Councillor Doucette?
So used to getting up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Item number 12, and related to that is item number 17, and then item
Just
number...
allow Mr. Doucette.
Yeah.
Item 12.
12, 17. Yeah, and 23.
And 23.
Yeah.
Are there any others? Councillor?
Item 1 for the public meeting.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 26, please.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any others? There being none, I ask for approval of those items not requiring separate discussion. Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Butters. Any questions or comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Now we have this evening we have check presentations on behalf of the Hydro Grant recipients. Mr. Battery?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is a pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of Colborne Hydro. If I can first take this opportunity to call the members of the Hydro Board up. Yourself, Mr. Mayor, if you want to come on up. Councillor Bodner, if you want to come on up, that's fine. Okay. Councillor Kenny, as well as our citizen appointee, Mr. Gary Bruno. Ladies and gentlemen, for those that may not know who I am, my name is Vance Badaway, and I am currently the chairman of Port Colborne Hydro, Inc. Port Colborne Hydro, Inc. has been providing discretionary grants to the City of Port Colborne, as well as other communities throughout the region of Niagara, since the authority was passed over to them by City Council in 2003. We currently review applications twice a year, and for the April 30th deadline, which was the final deadline for the year 2015, we received requests totaling $55,640 from 7 different organizations. This evening, we are handing out 6 grants, totaling $18,000, $18,900 to be exact, bringing our total grants for 2015 to $40,000. I'm here tonight, as I mentioned earlier, with 4 of our board members, Mayor John Maloney, Councillor B. Kenny, Councillor Ron Bodner, as well as our Citizen Council appointed member of the public, Mr. Gary Bruno. And they'll be assisting me in handing out these grants to the different organizations. I will start off with the first 2 organizations. And if I can call Mr. Kevin Rawlings and Dean Tedesco up, as well as Doug Carter from the Community Artists Niagara. Community Artists Niagara will be receiving $800 to provide funds to assist with the cost of installing 2 4x4 murals on the exterior north wall of the box office annex at the Roselawn Center. This project will be completed by students from Port Colborne High School. Now, which one are you? Are you Kevin or are you Dean?
I'm Kevin.
You're Kevin. Well, Kevin, congratulations.
Great.
And best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything?
No, I think the murals will give opportunity for the youth in the area and will beautify the area as well.
Great. Once again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done. The next grant is to the Niagara Antique Power Association, and I would take this opportunity to ask Barbara Middlestead to come on up. Barbara, of course, no stranger to the council chamber. The Niagara Antique Power Association, who just 2 weeks ago held another very, very successful event out at Learn Road Farm Grounds, will be receiving $1,472 to assist with the renovations of their bake shop. So Barb, as always, congratulations, and thank you for making this.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Mayor and Mayor.
Maloney.
I was trying to get around you this evening. The council and Port Colborne Hydro for giving us this grant. This will help us to make our bake shop healthier and safer for the people who come to visit and buy our food here. We keep our prices at the gate so that family can come at $5. So everybody can enjoy a great day, and this year it was fabulous. We had rain on Friday, but Saturday and Sunday was awesome. So come out to the show. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Barbara. Now, if I can ask Mayor Maloney to come on up and hand out a few more.
Thank you, Mayor. Former Mayor Badaway. Our next grant recipient is the Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouses. I would like to ask Lynn Meyer to come forward to receive the check. The Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouses will be receiving $2,500 to assist with the cost of insurance for their tours held during Canal Days and throughout the year, during other good weather days this coming summer. This is a very hard-working group of individuals and volunteers who are giving us an opportunity to view our historic lighthouses after a brief boat ride from the marina. So come early on Canal Days because there's often a lineup. See, there are a large number of the members of the Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouses in the audience here tonight, and I thank you for coming too. And also, I'd like to, again, present you with this check. It's going to a very good cause.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I'd like to extend our very sincere thanks for the support for our group and its efforts to promote and preserve the rich heritage found in our lighthouses. Although our lighthouses were not included as one of the 74 that were designated as heritage status by the federal government, we're hopeful that this designation will be forthcoming in the near future. Our chair, Mr. Erno Rossi, has had ongoing communication with the Department of Oceans and Fisheries and the Seaway Authority in the attempt of receiving longer-term stewardship of our beautiful beacons that have been declared surplus. We are very excited about the upcoming tours that have been referred to, and we invite everyone out to see the two beacons up close and can explore them and climb if they so wish for a donation of $15 per person. Allows you to tour the lighthouses and provides a free boat ride to and from. And for families, $25. So we hope we have a good turnout as we have had in the past, and we look forward to seeing some of you. Thank you very much.
Councillor Kenny?
Thanks.
Welcome.
Our next grant recipient is Friends of Roselawn, and I'll ask Patricia Bowman to come forward. Friends of Roselawn Center will be receiving tonight from the Hydro Board a grant of $8,200 to assist with the cost of refurbishing the original Rose Garden fountain. This active group of volunteers have been working with the city staff to complete a full garden restoration on the grounds of the Roselawn Center. This fountain that they're going to be replacing was the focal point of the original heritage rose garden. And I was just there, Patricia, Saturday evening, at the Stag and Doe play and walked around the gardens. And you guys have done a marvelous, marvelous job. You should be very proud of that. So on behalf of the board, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And if you'd like to say a few words, that'd be great.
Really appreciate receiving this check. You don't know how much this means to the group. We've worked hard, and in order to preserve that little bit of green space in Port Colborne and make it stand out, and it's part of our heritage, so it's our little gem. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much to the Hydro Board and Beatrice and Mayor Maloney and Vance. Thank you, and the council. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The next presentation I'm making on behalf of one of our members who is not coming to the podium tonight, and that's member Ron Bodner. So I'm making this on his behalf. And the next grant recipient is the Christian French Child Advocacy Center, Niagara. And I'd like to call upon Lynn Churchill and Andrea Jock. The Christian French Advocacy Center in Niagara has been operating for 6 years and provides a safe place to help, heal, and end child abuse for children and youth throughout Niagara. They will be receiving $1,300 to assist with the implementation of the database website resource that outlines the programs and resources available in Niagara for parents of young children and youth. So, congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Port Colborne Hydro, and it's nice to have a citizen rep here this evening. I can't tell you how much we appreciate your contribution. Last time we were in this room, Councilor Member Ron, I remember, spoke quite eloquently about the history of Port Colborne's support of the work that we do at the Advocacy Center, and so very much appreciate your generosity. These funds will be used towards the development of a collaborative website that we're doing in conjunction with a number of social service agencies. My chairperson of my committee is Andrea, who's here with me this evening, so thank you very much.
Gary?
Well, last but certainly not least, the final grant goes to Habitat for Humanity. Alistair Davis is here. Alistair, will you come up? It's got a great story. Probably tell us if you need any more help, too. Habitat for Humanity is completing a unique build in Port Colborne this year. as they are renovating and upgrading a home at 320 Bell Street, which was donated by John Klozek in memory of his parents. The home is in excellent structural condition and just needs some tender, loving care. We're happy to provide a check for $4,628 to assist with the cost of this renovation. Alistair? Congratulations. Say a few words.
Well, thank you so very much, and my particular thanks to the members of the Hydro Board and to council and staff, and really to the community of Port Colborne for the great support we're seeing for this project. We haven't started the renovation of this wonderful home yet. We're still in the process of getting organized and getting the funds raised, and I guess sort of the products and gifts that we require. And this is a powerful message, very, very powerful message. I think also what I've heard this evening of how strategic the investment has been of the Hydro Fund to be able to make special things happen in the community. If you have any more information you'd like to know or ways that you want to help with this project, certainly contact me or the chair of our steering committee, who is Councillor Damaris. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our presentations for this evening, and I'll conclude by saying that there is currently a recommendation before City Council for a review of the grant program and a recommendation about the future of the granting program here in the community. And with that, will be brought forward back to Council, I'm assuming later on this year. But I do want to say, again in closing, that the folks that we've been granting a lot of these dollars to for the past many years, quite frankly, it's the very least we can do. We all recognize as residents, as community members, community leaders, that the contributions that you folks make on a daily basis, most of which is done on a volunteer basis, is everlasting in the community. Your contributions go further than sometimes you may think they do. You touch a lot of people, in their lives, and of course with that, make a difference in the communities that you work in. So with that, and it's not something that we say enough, we may say it with checks, but I think it's equally, if not more important, to simply just say those two words, which is thank you for everything that you do. And with that, give yourselves a hand, because you deserve it. And with that, the council, thank you as well for your generosity and, of course, giving us the ability to have this money made available to each and every one of these folks that are here in the gallery. And with that, we do hope for a positive recommendation when it comes forward to, in fact, continue this program. So with that, I bid you good night, and once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Badaway. We have two delegations tonight. I would advise the individuals that we have 10 minutes per delegation. This time I'd like to call Cynthia Melvert, Community Outreach Coordinator of Welland Heritage Council and Multicultural Center, providing information on programs and events that the center has to offer to Niagara.
So good evening, Your Honor, City Council and staff. My name is Cynthia Malaver. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Welland Heritage Council and Multicultural Center. So I'm just here to talk to you about our organization and what we do and accomplish in the Niagara region. So the Welland Heritage Council and Multicultural Center is a nonprofit organization that has been in operation since 1976. Our founder, Mrs. Ward, created this organization as a means to help the newcomers in the Niagara region. So today we are not just about immigration, we are a multi-service, diverse organization that not only has a foundation in immigration, but we also do certain programs and services such as resume building, youth summer jobs, emergency shelter, and immigration settlement. So looking into the many programs and services that we have English as a second language. This is a program where anyone in the community can come and learn how to speak and write English. We have a certified teacher that works one-on-one with the individual to help them learn the language. We also have a women's entrepreneurship development program. This program is an 8-week training program that teaches women everything they need to know to start their own business. They're able to take out a small microloan, and through that, they're mentored by a businesswoman. These opportunities enable the women to go out back into the community and to work full-time on their businesses. So under the Niagara Prosperity Initiative Fitness and Finance Program, we also offer for lower-income people the chance to become healthier and reduce stress. So we do this through weekly yoga and weight classes. Our community convener, she works one-on-one with these people and develops workshops to enable them to make healthier life choices, coping with stress, staying motivated. So under the Improving Prosperity Niagara's Women's Business Owners, we also started out this program as a means to assess the problems that women face in the region. So right now we're in the beginning stages where we're holding meetings and we're cooperating with the Brock University to see what women need to start their own businesses. So we also have Employment Solutions. That's our organization where anyone can come to aid in jobs and helping them find a job, building their resumes. So our website is a place where anyone can go and see upcoming training workshops that are offered, such as WMIS, SmartServe, CPR, safe food handling, and how to dress successfully for the job force. All of this is provided to assist in making the job process easier. People are also encouraged to seek our help in building up their resumes, having a really good marketable cover letter, and they're kept current on current job openings and job fairs that we arrange. So with this program, job seekers are able to learn basic computer skills as well. This program also is a really good program because it works with the employer to provide wage subsidies to offset training costs with workshops and government regulations in human resources. So we also offer like a space where employers can come and meet and do interviews. And our counselors can arrange job fairs as well. So if you want to come and find a job, visit our offices. So and last but not least, immigration settlement. So our counselors work with the immigrants in the area. Immigration is a process that requires a lot of decision making. Our settlement counselors empower clients towards the best and well-informed decisions. They guide individuals and families towards success by pointing them in the right direction, interpreting immigration regulations, and clarifying legal requirements. They keep clients informed regarding policy changes, processing fees, support documents, and processing timelines. These counselors also work together with many of the individuals running the different programs that I spoke to you about to help the individual get out in the community and get involved. So I know for me, immigration and settlement, I'm grateful to be working at the Walnut Heritage Council. Me and my family, we immigrated here in 2007. We went to the Walnut Heritage Council. They provided us with emergency shelter because we had nowhere to go. They also provided us with numerous volunteer opportunities to get us out in the community, to get involved. They also helped us with legal fees, offering us English and French since we had a language barrier. So now I am proud to say that the Walnut Heritage Council also helped me get into a university of my choice, such as Brock. And through them, we were able to get me a scholarship that got me $20,000. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Cynthia. We very much appreciate your presentation this evening. Could you just hold on to Cynthia? Don't run away.
Okay.
Are there any questions of members of council? Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Cynthia. Great presentation, and I'm encouraged to see the work that you're doing, especially with newcomers to our area. be it newcomers to the area or the country, both. And with the Prosperity Initiative training, it's a one-stop shop. If you could just make your last slide get bigger with that.
Really?
Your website, is that your home website for Welland Heritage Council and Multicultural Center? If people are looking for information, we can go to the last one. Is that the website to go to?
No, that's the Employment Solutions website.
Okay.
Our
Yep. If you have one, could you share it with everybody and
Yes,
for
our
people
website
on
is-
TV?
Yes, our website is www.wellandheritagecouncil.com. That is the Employment Solutions website where anyone's welcome to go and find current job listings, workshops that we have, and can apply for anything there. But our main website is www.wellandheritagecouncil.com.
Any further
Any
questions?
other questions?
Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just something you had said about Dress for Success. Do you have a supply of, what I'm thinking of is occasionally my wife changes outfits, and we donate the outfits to, to different organizations. Do you have something like that you have a bank of something, business clothes for women or something? Or?
Well, we do have, anyone's welcome to give us any, we do accept any donations because we are non-profit.
Right.
But I believe the program that we were trying to do was mostly, if anyone can give us any clothes, but for that program we were looking into business attire. So if you did want to donate, you just get in contact with our chief director, which is Claire Maswell.
It's kind of funny because my wife's name's Claire. So.
Any other questions?
Claire's not interested.
Thank you very, very much for your presentation. It was excellent. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And Claire Maswell, who portion, because I don't golf very well, so I pass on that one. I met with Staff Sergeant Chris Scotland regarding dirt bike and ATV issue, which is becoming a larger concern in the community, and sometimes they're all-night parties out in the rural area, but very adjacent to our urban areas. And so this will be something that we're going to be pursuing. We have a meeting scheduled Thursday night to visit some of the offending sites, and hopefully we'll be taking positive steps within our means thereafter. I also met with Suzanne Johnson, the CEO of the Niagara Health System, along with the mayors of Waynfleet and Welland. And a surprise guest visitor was Kevin Smith, who we all know of earlier times in the health system. I also attended the graduation ceremonies at Port Colborne High School. Alderman Doucette took my place at Lakeshore High. They were on the same night, and of course you can't be two places at once. In any event, that's a brief rundown of some of the events of the last 2 weeks. Regional Councillor Barrick, you have a regional report to provide us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start by congratulating Scott Louie as the CAO. First council meeting that I've been at, and he's here, so I'm sure this council will be served very well by his experience and expertise in municipal public administration. So welcome, Scott. Pleasure. I was here a couple of weeks ago talking about the courthouse issue at the region, and I think I gave a brief synopsis of the options that were before us. So many of you may have heard through the media already, but the region has decided to move ahead with a new courthouse in Welland at a cost of about $12.5 million. This ensures, in my view, continued access to justice for South Niagara. The St. Catharines decision on their courthouse has been deferred until after AMPS. AMPS, again, is the Administrative Monetary Penalty System, which is an online option. Once that is in full swing, we'll have an opportunity to determine the usage of both courthouses to determine next steps. Again, many may have also heard through the media already that Regional Council did approve a 0% budget guidance for 2016, and that was passed 27-1. The region's process is slightly different than the City of Port Colborne's, for example, whereby the region typically sets a guidance, staff works through the summer, comes back in the fall with some options on how close they are with guidance. And then we really get into full deliberations in the fall. I understand how it works in Port Colborne, again, for example, is staff will bring forward where they think they're at, and then council whittles away that number. At least that's how it's been historically. So just to give a high-level overview, 0% budget guidance doesn't necessarily mean 0% approved. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. Further, the region is anticipating to continue with the curbside battery collection. It's set to continue for 2016. That, in my view, is excellent value for money. It costs regional taxpayers about $3,000 a year. That's the entire Niagara region, to collect over 8,000 kilograms. And they're recycled right here in Port Colborne, done by Raw Materials Corporation. So in my view, that's a good news story on a variety of levels. Furthermore, recently, the region approved the Lakefront Enhancement Incentive Program, the Port Colborne application, and approved over $200,000 for the Clear Water Project, which I'm sure this council is familiar with. So that's what I have for now, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions of Mr. Barrick? Alderman Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Barrick or to yourself. I know about a month ago I brought up the issue of Highway 3 and the railroads with the bridge. I was just wondering if you've brought it up to staff yet and are dealing with it. I have pictures that indicate how the trucks are blocking Chippewa Road when the bridge is up. And one of the proponents indicated that maybe the sign for stopping and the line for stopping should be before Chippewa Road, because even if a truck stops properly where they're supposed to, they're blocking Chippewa Road. So there's an issue of the size of the vehicle and the fact that the size of the vehicle is going to be blocking that road. I was just wondering if you had brought it up to staff and if staff had been able to take a good look at it and see. I'm still getting some complaints about it when the bridge goes up, so I was just wondering.
I have not discussed this with regional staff. I was waiting for a memo from our own staff to provide that. So I spoke with the individual in the Public Works, and he will be providing me with that very shortly.
Excellent.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Just on that, Mr. Mayor, if I may, just to be clear, that's the first time I've heard of that issue.
Yes, you weren't here.
But I'm happy to assist in any way that I can.
Thank you, Mr. Barrick. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor Barrick. Councillor Barrick, I'm a member or commissioner of the Niagara Central Airport Commission, and we've heard that Regional Council is considering taking over the district airport. And so we want to know, I would like to know, and I'm sure others, I know Vice Chair Butters, who sits on this commission with me, we'd like to know your stance on how you feel about, we have a motion before us tonight that we're going to be discussing, but the takeover, they're going to take over both airports. We'd just like to know what your feelings are on that, or have you heard anything come before Regional Council on that matter? Thanks.
Great, thanks for the question, Councillor. So, to be clear, the local municipalities of Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, and Niagara Lake all passed resolutions asking the region to examine how to take over Niagara District. And they've got a business case, and they've got some scenarios. So their request is coming to the region. The region isn't considering it on its own. They're reacting based on the local municipal councils. So to be fair, I haven't heard all the rationale as to why. I have some trepidation on diving into that discussion without also looking at Niagara Central. So I'm happy to hear that there's possibly going to be a resolution by this council tonight. And I think that'll help shape the discussions at the region, quite frankly. So I guess I'll hold comment until we get all the information, but I look forward to seeing this council put something at the regional table at the same time. And it makes it easier for when the mayor and I stand up to advocate on behalf of Niagara Central.
I think I heard earlier comments that members may have been concerned that this was a done deal, the region assuming the Niagara District Airport, and I assure them that was not the case.
Yeah, if I mean, the region hasn't even talked about it yet. So it's not a foregone conclusion by any means.
Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To both of you then, could you keep Councillor Kenny and I kind of in the loop of the information as it kind of percolates, well, up or down, depending on your point of view regarding this issue?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of Councillor Barrick? Thank you very much for being with us tonight, Councillor Barrick, and for your responses. At this time, we'd move on to any councillors' issues or items that they wish to bring forward. Any inquiries of staff? Councillor Elliott?
I'll stand up. I've always wondered why we stand up. Now I can't stop. I don't know. It's just easier to talk. I'll hit Ron with a bunch of issues that I missed last meeting, so I got a laundry list to catch up with. Number one, the laneway behind TD Canada Trust that crosses the tracks and exits out to Fielden has developed a couple of huge potholes right at the tracks. If anybody's riding their bike or walking, let alone drive, finds it very difficult to negotiate. And there's another pothole about 10 feet past that needs looked after. We tend to that laneway, we pave it, so we should look after that. A couple of issues with the new lights that we have, LED. In front of Shoppers Drug Mart, there's one pole that has two heads on it. Both of them have the new LED system in, light fixtures in. It didn't work when they replaced the lights. It still doesn't work. And also the pole across the street that's supposed to have LED, and the pole's supposed to be there, that orange cone has been over top of that for a very, very long time. The cone, I noticed tonight, has been moved, and the wires are sticking out of the ground. I don't know if anybody noticed coming in when you come around the corner on Catherine Street right here, you got to swerve to miss the cone, the safety barrier. There's a pothole underneath that. Somebody's put that over top of it so people don't step in it. It is a dangerous situation. That's got to get looked after right away. I did notice in my travels over the last week or so, the entry signs coming into town, Highway 3 and Highway 58, the signs are in disrepair. The one on Highway 3 coming into town is starting to lean over. It almost looks like it's going to fall down. The one on 58 coming into town looks like it's got a couple of boards missing off it. I wonder if we could get those fixed. We're going to welcome people to town the next couple, 3 weeks for our signature event. Maybe we ought to spruce it up a little bit so that the welcome mat is out and in fine condition. One other thing that Councillor Desmarais had brought up, I think it was the last meeting I was at, so it's going back 4 weeks, 6 weeks ago. The line painting on Welland Street around the curve over the bridge, the line is now non-existent, and neither is the turning lane isn't identified. And we're going to have a lot of people come into town. Maybe they should know what side of the street to drive on. I just noticed that the other night, and the other day I was driving over and I thought, Angie complained about that, and I don't know how long ago, and it still hasn't been done. So we really, really need to look after that prior to Canal Days if possible. Whoever can get that done. And I guess Fire Chief sitting right here, I've had a bunch of people noticed in the paper lately that both Niagara Falls and Fort Erie have passed bylaws restricting the size of fireplaces in their backyard with limits off the property line, close to the house. And they wonder why we can't have that in Port Colborne. And I'd like to have a report from the chief giving us the options on how we can permit that. I believe that one of them or both of them have permits that you can buy on a yearly basis. It seems like some issues get more traction than others. This is one of them. I've probably had 10 or 12 people contact me in the last week wanting to know why other municipalities can and we can't. I know that we're on a complaint basis right now, but they're actually saying you can have them in your backyard if they're this big, set off the property line away from a building and whatnot. And if they can do it in other cities and towns, why can't we have it here? So I'd like a report on the options as soon as possible, because I'm thinking if other towns can do it, so can we. Our people are just as responsible as citizens in other communities. So A, your opinion on that, and B, how quick can we get the report with options on limiting and whether or not it is possible to have it as a permit system or just as still a complaint, but that the people are eligible to have them in their backyard.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Mr. Hanson, do you wish to respond to any of Mr. Elliott's comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, the pothole issues, we will follow up on those immediately and have those repaired. Some of the missing LED lights and the ones that are in service now, we're actually awaiting some wiring issues on some of the poles. It has to be rewired in some cases. We're also not replacing LEDs where there is an existing pole that's waiting to be replaced. So we don't want to duplicate our efforts. So when those poles are replaced either by Bell or CNP, then the LED fixture will go up at that time. So you will notice across the city the odd location where there isn't a new LED in place, and that's the reason for it. We're waiting the other utilities getting their infrastructure in place so we can just do the LED once. The line painting, that contract has been awarded. We've met with the contractor at our pre-construction meeting, and we're waiting for them to start any day. So I'll update council as soon as we have that start date and get that done, but that's imminent. The entry signs, I believe MTO and their maintenance contractor has been notified of that concern, and I'll follow up again tomorrow with MTO to see get those entrance signs repaired as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. On the issue of sort of outside campfires, backyard campfires, there has been discussion among staff, and Chief Cartwright is ready to respond on a preliminary basis.
Your Worship, members of council, to Councillor Elliott. I am familiar with what's taking place at Niagara Falls. I've got all their information, their reports, their bylaws and everything else. It takes effect to July the 29th, I believe. I will say to you that we have reviewed this as part of the master planning process, and it was decided to leave it alone because it's quite a controversial subject in the sense that right now we're running between 50 and 60 burning complaints a year. If we increase the opportunity for more fires, we're going to get more calls, which increases the risk in the municipality. The issue really is, yes, we could issue a permit. With that would have to come a fine if you violate burning without a permit and or outside of what is required of the permit. As well, the other issue that comes to mind, quite frankly, is if the fire department were to show up and they were to determine that it was safe, what do we do with the person who's complaining? It really is a political decision. It's not my decision, I understand that. And I'd be more than happy to, at the direction of council, I'd be more than happy to bring forward a report. But I'm going to tell you it took about 4 months, the process in Niagara Falls from beginning to end, because of the debate that took place, public meetings, those types of things did take place with regards to people not wanting more fires in the community. There's an added risk from an insurance perspective for the city. All those things need to be discussed. But again, it's a political decision to make. And quite frankly, if you wish a report brought forward, I'd be more than happy to write one up for you and bring it to you. But it's going to take me probably, I would think, 2 meetings of council to be able to get it put together and brought to you for your first discussion.
Mr. Elliott?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through to the Chief. Great. I'd love to have the report. And it's interesting that you say that a public meeting and everybody was against more fires, and yet both councils went ahead and approved the pro-fire people. And you say that there's 50 or 60 calls out by the fire department because people know that they're not allowed. Maybe if we pass a bylaw that says you can have one, maybe those 50 or 60 go away because people know that you can have them. I mean, sometimes it's done as being penal to your neighbor, and it boggles my mind that 2 other municipalities next door to us can pass these bylaws and amend their bylaw, and yet we can't. Are the 2 other fire chiefs in those municipalities behind us, ahead of us? Why do they do something different? Why is it okay for them and not okay for us? I never understand that. It may be a political decision. Their councils went and said, yes, you can do it. And I mean, I would assume that they would suffer a backlash by approving something that the majority of people didn't want, and yet that doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm having trouble figuring out why it's not okay for us, but it's okay for other municipalities. And I've yet to hear anything that you've said that would sway me to think that the people of Port Colborne can't have a small fire in their backyard, reasonable and safe, and not impact their neighbors. With the rules and regulations that I've seen from Fort Erie's, you can't do it over 20K wind, you can't have smoke. It's only got to be in a 1 meter by 1 meter size. It's got to be X number of meters off your lot line, away from your combustible house, or anything else that's combustible. And I think those are reasonable asks for people to take care of what they're doing, and yet we can't have it. And I've got people that ask me the same question. Why is it okay for other municipalities, but it's not okay here? I still don't understand that, and I would like to have options on bring forward what Fort Erie has, what Niagara Falls has done, and we'll consider. If it takes a couple of months, that's great. We can have it in place for next spring, and then we'll go forward from there. But I'm still having problems figuring out why others allow it and we don't. We don't have reasonable people in town that'll have fires.
Thank you,
and I just
Councilor
don't
Elliott.
think, yeah, and I don't think that
As
you'll
the
see
chief
it
has said, this is
escalated
under
in,
consideration.
Yep, and well, I'm
And we'll
asking,
answer those
yep,
questions.
and I'm asking for a report to come back to council.
And he said he would do so.
And absolutely, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has a question of the chief? There being none, I ask one more time for Mr. Clem. Is he in the body of the chambers? Then we'll move on to consideration. Oh, Councilor Butters, I'm sorry.
I thought you were sort of doing that side and
Then our side.
then our side.
Go ahead. Chief, do you want to come forward?
No, it's a council, like a councilor's issue.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Not anything to do with the chief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is through you to Mr. Hanson. I have a fellow out on Babian Road, and he, and I've sent this in the past, and he called me again today. He hasn't heard from our staff regarding his concern of a culvert, you know, where his driveway goes over, and he says he's worried about it failing. He says that it is failing. I will email you his address. I don't want to say it, you know, so everybody knows who he is, but I'm going to email it to you again. But could you follow up with this gentleman? I'll give you his address. He is also concerned about ditch cleaning in that area as well. With the heavy rains that we had in June, it really did have, the way the ditch wasn't working, I'll say, had an effect on the ability of his septic system to work properly. So it's about a 2-year issue for him at this point. It's been going on for a while. So if we could get an answer back for this gentleman, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Bodnar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Hanson. I see tonight we're passing a report talking about 5 drains that we're going to do. And while that wasn't pulled, my question is, if you look at a lot of the drains, Oil Mill Creek is one we drive by all the time, the ash trees along those drains, there's literally hundreds of dead ash trees. How are we going to be proactive? Can we get a report from the drainage superintendent or bring something forward? How are we going to deal with these trees as they, you know, age? It could be a year or 2, but eventually they're going to start breaking off their big branches, or even, you know, the tree itself going over. And it doesn't take too much to plug those drains up in a major storm, and any impedance of the water will certainly cause some angst down the way. I just wondered if we can have a thought process on how are we going to approach these.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's going to depend on the ownership to a certain degree of the trees themselves. I had the opportunity to do a road tour with the road superintendent a couple weeks ago, and it's actually mind-boggling to see the number of ash trees just along our road allowances in clusters of 50 to 100 trees in places along our roads that we somehow have to address through the current budgeting. That's just the road allowances themselves. The private property where some of the drains go through, they're definitely a concern as far as drainage, but whether we're able to actually get to those and deal with those at the same time, we have to address all the hundreds and hundreds of dead ash trees on the road allowances on city property is another challenge. So I'll speak to the drainage superintendent tomorrow on this and see if there's any means by which through the Drainage Act we can address the issue as well.
Thank you. Any other councillors have an item? Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ron or Harry, I'm not sure which one of you this will fall to, but I happened to go for a drive the other day, and I was up along the Seaway Training Center of the east side trail, right at the entrance there. You know, where there's a gate. That gate was locked. And that's the first time I've actually seen it locked in a way that didn't allow even horses to get around it. And my understanding is that's the entrance to the East Side Multi-Use Trail, so we should be able to get off-road vehicles and horses up that trail, but the gate was locked. I'm wondering, why is it locked, and who has access to that? Who has the key?
Mr. Hakeem, can you comment on that?
Through your worship to Councillor Desmarais, I'd have to defer to Ron or the park staff, but I think it's a Seaway gate, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not sure if we have a key through our parks operations staff or facility staff. I'm just not certain. It's not something that we necessarily have managed from community services side, but we'll integrate our work with park staff. So I can certainly investigate or certainly talk to Ron further on this.
Okay, I would be interested in finding that out, because if we're going to promote the use of that East Side Multi-Use Trail, then we should be able to get onto the trail. If it's locked, it's of no use.
If I can add a little bit, Councillor Desmarais, I had a meeting with the St. Lawrence Seaway Authority in St. Catharines, and they had expressed to me concerns about ATVs trespassing on their lands. And it may be as a result of that, I think meetings will be set up with Wendy? Tracy. Okay.
Yes, Your Worship. Tracy, Lynn Bell, and the Seaway representative, Lisa. I don't know her last name offhand, but we've communicated with them, with all due respect, and hopefully we'll set up a meeting to kind of coordinate the efforts that are sort of out there in terms of what Tracy's doing to enhance the trail.
Okay, I would be interested in hearing more about that when it comes forward, because there is an agreement in place, and it would be interesting to see why that's changing, or if that's changing. Okay.
Mr. Doucette, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Harry. Mr. Hakeem, about a couple of weeks ago, I sent you an email of an issue at the Marina ramp, and I was given information that it would be dealt with and it would be studied. Is there an answer yet, or are we still waiting for all of that to be finalized?
Through your worship to Councillor Doucette, we met on site actually about maybe 48 hours after that email, just to review some things. Mark is going to investigate. In fact, we came up with a solution to help mitigate the flow of traffic out when the launch ramp is used in the exit stage where they're staging. We're going to limit that area so that they have to pull around a little further, maintaining that access route through to the park. That's one solution. The other one is we're certainly going to talk to the road staff and the road supervisor to make sure that we're not contravening anything, because there's some elements of that area that were lined previously, but through the lakefront enhancement grant, there's some improvements that we're going to make to that area as well. So we have come up with a partial solution at this point, and we're going to try that, and hopefully that'll work for now.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Can I follow up?
Sure.
Okay. So that means that we will be seeing some improvement shortly or soon, or at least an attempt to improvement. Just so that that kind of issue doesn't happen again?
Yes. Short and simple answer is yes. In fact, we should be seeing those extra barricades and things out there to delineate that area a little further out so that so traffic can't be blocked, in theory. Exactly. There's a certain element of consideration by the public as well, in all due respect, but I think if we extend that area, it'll delineate the flow through traffic, and it'll hopefully help the boaters that are leaving.
Thank you.
To clarify, Mr. Hakeem, the actual issue is what?
Do you want me to fill that in?
Go ahead, Councilor Doucette.
Yeah, the issue itself was that there are boaters that are coming out, and what they're doing is they're going right into the traffic area, and they're stopping there, and they're there for 15, 20 minutes. And in this case, one of the people that were driving had to stop, and he asked them if they could move out of the way because it was in traffic, and he was told in no uncertain terms, using certain language, to go somewhere. And it took them 20 to 25 minutes. I received the email, sent the email to Mr. Hakeem, and right away. It appears that they seem to think that they can pull out and stop right in traffic and block traffic as long as they want, as long as it takes them to pull everything back in, put the cover back on, and however long it takes. And then they would move on, and then the traffic would follow them. So the only thing that the victim in this case was asking is that could the traffic be opened up and kept open the way it should be? And that's why we have that large parking lot on the side there so that the boats can go there and do whatever they're doing. They're not doing that. They're going right into the roadway and they're blocking. So it's just something I believe that we can solve very easily, but we need to put some solution in there. And we need also an education program for boaters as well as people who are driving there, that there are certain areas that are meant for this kind of stuff and certain areas that are not.
Thank you for the explanation. Councillor Elliott, to further your concerns on the fireworks bylaw, I wonder if you would like to provide a motion to ensure that we receive from the fire chief exactly what you're looking for.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to put a motion forward that the chief provides us, or a staff direction, that we get a report from the chief, including the bylaw amendments and changes that both Niagara Falls and Fort Erie have implemented, and the full bylaws that they have on the books right now, and bring them to us at his leisure whenever he can get to it. I don't think there's any rush. He said that it's probably going to be a couple of months anyways, whenever he's done, and gives us options on what we can do to implement the same in the city of Port Colborne.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Chief, do you have sufficient direction there to respond to Mr. Elliott?
Your worship, by all means, I indicated it would take me a couple council meetings, so I'm thinking a month time roughly I should have the council.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Dench, glad to have your input. Okay, all those in favor? Have a question?
Through to Ron, just to follow up, with this pole out here, the two ones that I had mentioned, the double-headed one in front of Shoppers, it is LED right now, but it doesn't work, and it didn't work prior to. Can we look at getting that fixed, or is that going to be replaced? And then also that one that was knocked down a long time ago in front of Food Basics, that just the cone is over top of it with the sandbags. Is that going to be replaced at sometime soon?
Mr. Mayor, through you, we'll follow up on both those. There is one of the outstanding items left with the LED program is the decorative lighting, some of the decorative lighting downtown, and we're addressing how they can be, some of the decorative fixtures can be retrofitted with LED fixtures. So let me follow up on that. It may be that it's one of the decorative ones that they're waiting to address. I don't know. Let me follow up on that tomorrow, and I'll let you know.
Well,
The one that goes in the one with the street, and then the one that goes.
Okay.
we have a motion moved and seconded. Can I call the question, please? All those in favor? Carried. Okay. And let's move on again at this time to consideration of those items requiring separate discussion. The first one was number 1, Councillor Elliott. Would you like to read the recommendation?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Administrative Officer, Special Projects and Corporate Strategic Initiatives, Report number 2015-133, subject stopping up and closing of part of 2 unopened road allowances, Klein-Smith Road. And I'll just read it real quick so that those in the public know what we're discussing. That Council approves for enactment the draft bylaw attached hereto as attachment E, which provides for authorization to 1, permanently close and deed to Nyan Oil Inc. and Nyan Marine Fueling Corporation, brackets Nyan, part of the original road allowance known as Klein-Smith Road, between parts 55 and 56 on reference plan 59R-15312, conditional on the consent of the Ontario Minister of Transport to accept and dedicate a new municipal access road. The portion of the unimproved and untraveled portion of the original road allowance between lots 24 and 25, concession 4 north of the road allowance between concessions 3 and 4, and south of the Welland Canal and the former geographic township of Humberstone, now in the city of Port Colborne, designated as parts 1, 7, and 8 on the reference plan 59R-15310, dated March 18, 2015, and 2, to accept and dedicate as municipal road lands conveyed by Nyan Oil Inc. and Nyan Marine Fueling Corporation, Nyan, to the city to include parts 28, 29, and 30, as well as parts 17 and 18 on reference plan 59R-15312, conditional on the consent of the Ontario Minister of Transport to accept and dedicate a new municipal access road, and 3, to widen the untraveled portion of Klein-Smith Road to include parts 28, 29, and 30 on reference plan 59R-15312, and to extend Klein-Smith Road to include the lands designated as parts 17 and 18 on reference plan 59R-15312, and the dedication of the lands as a new municipal access road, conditional on the consent of the Ontario Minister of Transport after its construction by Nyan Oil Inc. and Nyan Marine Fueling Corporation, Nyan, to the acceptable standard agreed upon in the road agreement between Nyan and the city.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Bodner? Mr. Vincent, could you make a presentation on this issue for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to initially apologize to the councillor because there was a small error in the actual recommendation section that's been addressed in the revised bylaw. And it effectively makes the change that instead of read the section and I'll tell you what was changed in it. Permanently close and deed to Nyan Oil Inc. and Nyan Marine Fueling Corporation, Nyan, part of the original road allowance known as Klein-Smith Road in parts 55 and 56. If you look at the now revised bylaw, you will see that the change has been that upon and after passing of this bylaw, subject to the consent of the Ontario Minister of Transport to accept and dedicate a new municipal road allowance, now hereby stopped up and permanently closed, is the portion of the original road allowance known as Klein-Smith Road being parts 55 and 56. So effectively what that does is that maintains those 2 small pieces of land at the very end of Klein-Smith going onto Highway 140 in the city's possession. Obviously, it's not even attached to the Nyan Energy Park area. It was an error on my part and was picked up and we notified the clerk, but it was too late to change the public report, which was already out and issued. So I do apologize to council for that change. So what we have here tonight is a continuing process to finalize the remaining details of the closing agreements that we had with Nyan Oil Inc. For the energy park. Part of that involved the road closure of Klein-Smith and the opening of a new road built to the standards that's defined in the road agreement, which was approved and passed by council and is registered on title. Effectively, what this does is it starts the timeline for work to begin in the sense that now we've passed a bylaw. Now it's between Nyan Oil Inc. and the Ministry of Transportation to approve a new entrance and to actually build it. So Klein-Smith Road itself, as it currently exists, will not close until a new road is built. So the residents there will still have access. Obviously, at the point in time when the new access is built and is approved by the Ministry of Transportation for opening, because this is a controlled access highway, at that point in time, we would close the southerly end of Kleinsmith Road. And, Your Honor, that's effectively what this report is. It's not a very complicated report in itself, so I will defer to council for questions if they wish to ask any on the report.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. Councillor Butters. First of all, is everyone clear on the change, correction, which will be the bylaw will be a corrected description, but is everyone clear on?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Butters, would you proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Vincent. Have all the issues with the residents of Kleinsmith or people that own property along there, they're affected by this, have they all been satisfactorily resolved?
Through Mr. Mayor to the councillor, I cannot say that they've all been resolved to the residents' satisfaction. Obviously, if they have been, that would be fine. But the reality is this is a legal agreement that the city entered into as a part of the Nyan Energy Park project. I do know that there have been discussions ongoing with one of the representatives, and that gentleman is here tonight, and he in fact has a chance to make a presentation to council. I believe they've made some progress on his issue. With respect to the second gentleman, I've spent time visiting with him in the last month or so. There appears to be a limited ability for him to make decisions at the present time, and I don't want to pursue it any more than that. If I could leave that off the public record, I'd prefer to. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of Mr. Vincent? There being none, we'll move into oral presentations or questions from any members here in the body of the council chambers. Mr. Munger had indicated he'd like to address council. Come forward, Mr. Munger. And you're Dan Munger at 1170 Kleinsmith Road?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
I'm a homeowner on Kleinsmith Road. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't said too much, but now I'm seeing the big picture and how this is affecting me. The closing of Kleinsmith Road is a major negative factor on my home and property. What now is direct, easy access to 140 will eventually be a long ride around my whole property of almost 18 acres. The distance from where I would usually get on the 140 to where I will have to now drive around back to is 1.28 kilometers. Over 2.5 kilometers if I want to go back home, if I want to come back to my house. So over 2.5 kilometers just to leave the house and return home. It's probably 100 feet from my driveway to the 140 right now, and I'll be driving 1.28 kilometers to go around the new road that they plan to build. So on any given day, myself, my girlfriend, we have to go to work. That's 2 trips a day, 5 kilometers. Then whether going to the gym, coffee, groceries, anything, that's another 2.5 kilometers or 5 kilometers. And that's 10 kilometers a day, almost out of my way driving every day to leave my house now instead of just getting on the highway. When I bought my house, it was easy access right on the highway. Go to Port Colborne, go to Welland, pull out and go. It's nice to come home, leave the house. But what kind of a selling feature is that going to be to any potential buyers if I ever want to sell my house? To have to drive around this back road now that's going to go by the oil tank farm and then come around accessing the back of the house. You might say big deal, you know, it's a nice couple extra minutes every time to go where you have to go. Well, it adds up. There's try driving around your block every time you leave your house, or when you have to go back out and do something, try driving around the block again before you actually have to go do what you're going to do, because that's what I'm going to be doing. And see how long you want to try that for. I will have to do it for as long as I live there, which will probably be a long time. Because I think if I try and sell my house, living now beside an oil tank farm and this long access road. I wouldn't get too many buyers. Would anybody really want to live in that house once the tank farm's there and this road's changed, driving by a tank farm all this way to this house by itself? It's not too appetizing. It's a nice property there. I got a lot of acres around. I see wildlife and stuff, but once the tank farm's there, it'll change. And the other industrial businesses behind me. And I have a question for anybody that wants to answer it. Do you think that closing Klein Smith Road will drop my property value? I think it will. Nyan Oil once promised to buy out the properties that were directly affected by the project, and I would say that I am most directly affected. They offered, at one time, fair market value plus 10%. And I remember some of the city councilors, they were going to fight for 15% plus fair market value. So this is, do you remember those days? That was the topic. And somehow that deal doesn't exist anymore. Somebody changed their minds. Now they want to offer depreciation value. Closing my road, that will depreciate my property. But how do you gauge that? Do I get an assessment, an appraisal, and then now somebody's going to have to drive around and building a tank farm and living next to it? That will depreciate my property value. How do you gauge or how do you value that? Is Nyan Oil going to agree with appraisals and property assessments that I have done? Probably not. They're going to deny or downplay it. Oh, nice scenic road behind your house, you get to drive down. Oil tank, I know it's a good business for the community, but not necessarily for me. Will I have to get a lawyer, to get anything? They want to offer depreciation value. I will probably have to get a lawyer because they have lots of lawyers. I think it will be a fight. And I'm the only one there on Klein Smith Road who is going to have to fight. And I have another question, city councilors or anybody else. Would you buy that house once the road? I think I asked the question, but would you buy the house there, living beside an oil tank farm? Can you think of anybody buying my house, and how is this going to affect my property value? I had my house appraised for $365,000 3 years ago, and I want to know what's it going to be worth in 2 or 3 years once this whole project is underway. My road's closed, the oil tank farm's there. If it's going to happen that fast, what's my property going to be worth there? And how much of a fight is it going to be to get depreciation value that they said they would offer? And that's all. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Munger. Mr. Vincent, are you prepared to respond to any of Mr. Munger's concerns?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I don't have any ability to comment on Mr. Munger's concerns. I can tell you that the agreement provides a property protection plan that establishes the value at the time, and then if it goes below that value, the Nyan has agreed to pick up the difference. There has to be a signed agreement, though, between the property owner and Nyan for that to be put in place. And property protection plans are normally only found around waste areas, where that's where we found a particular document that was used in this case. But there's nothing in the original agreement that provided for a specific value to be applied to the houses that are affected indirectly by this project. And as such, the negotiations that we had over the last number of years have been trying to put something in place that was not in the original agreement. And to be fair to Nyan, they have agreed to several of those changes that we requested. Mr. Munger is obviously taking a position that he's entitled to take as the owner. He feels he's going to be impacted. We've been trying to facilitate discussions between Mr. Munger and Nyan, and they've had discussions. They had discussions this evening, as a matter of fact, when I came here. I thought there was some progress made on at least one part of the issue. Maybe it has been, but I didn't hear that stated by Mr. Munger, so I can't say what the progress may have been. But with respect to the actual property value, the agreement has a property value protection plan, and the map shows the area that's protected, and it is to guarantee that the present value at the time the deal is done stays in place.
Thank you. Any members of council? Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If Mr. Vincent can't answer the questions of Mr. Munger, Mr. Baker and his colleagues are in the gallery. Are they able to answer any of Mr. Munger's questions?
I'll ask them if they wish to come forward, but at this time, are there any more questions of Mr. Munger? They're being done. Thank you, Mr. Munger.
Thank you.
Mr. Baker, are you prepared to come forward and address the issues proposed by Mr. Munger?
I said no.
As to the value property protection agreement, it relates to appraisals and its fair market value. And there's a process of one appraisal, and if the parties don't agree, they get second appraisals or third appraisals, and deal with on the basis of appraisals. I don't know whether the price of value would go up or not, but I think having a paved road would be an advantage, and paved all the way around this property. As to the issue that he raised in his note with regards to inconvenience and being compensated for inconvenience, Mr. Munger and I signed an agreement tonight to satisfy that.
Okay, any more comments? That's it. Perhaps I have a question of council here. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, you've signed the inconvenience for him going around tonight. That's great. But this protection assessment plan, that's so say if 5 years down the road he decides he wants to sell his property, today it's valued, he said $360,000. So when he went to sell it, if it was 500, we'll just say less, say $250,000, is your company signing an agreement with him to pay the difference?
It's a question of whose appraisals, but I can tell you that the appraisal we have right now is very close to his.
Okay.
So I won't tell you what the number is, but it's close enough that I don't think we're going to be
So I
arguing
guess
very much.
my question is this man going to be protected? Because
Yes.
both of you are going to sign that agreement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, is that correct, Mr. Andre?
We have not signed an agreement.
Yeah, but my value, he tells me his value is, I know what my valuation is, and there isn't a 3% difference.
Okay.
2% difference.
Okay. I just want to make sure that that's going to be signed before I put my hand up. I want to make sure that.
We've agreed to do that. Okay. That's one of the documents we had at closing, and we would provide that.
Thank you.
Each of the landowners within that area is defined.
I'm glad to see that's proceeding in that way. Thank you.
Any other members of council? Yes, Councillor Butters?
Mr. Munger didn't answer. I didn't hear his answer. Could we just hear Mr. Munger's answer?
Answer to what, Councillor Butters?
Well, he started to say something, but he stopped, so I just wondered if he could complete.
Sorry, I do not have an agreement with Mr. Baker on any protection plan.
No, it's with the city, there's an agreement that we will present that plan to every landowner.
Councillor Butters?
So each of the six, there's six, correct?
Or I think there's more than that.
Well, okay, for whatever the number
there's
is,
11.
each of those owners will be presented with the plan.
Yes.
And then an agreed upon number that you both arrive at, or just the plan
They have
itself?
the plan, and then who knows when they're going to sell or want to sell. I don't know.
So does Mr. Munger have that plan?
Well, here's the benefit of the plan, because we were obligated to sign it, to give it to him.
Okay, so you have the plan in your,
It's on the city website.
Okay.
It's one of the closing agreements.
okay. I think there's a little bit confusion here, because when somebody says, you know, like the homeowner has the plan, but then the homeowner says like,
No,
I'm not really
I said we were
clear.
obligated to provide this
provide?
plan, and it's in the agreements with the closing with the city. It's with the city, we
Okay.
have the obligation to provide this plan.
I guess I was just curious about
city
the
approved the
process.
plan.
Yes, so each homeowner doesn't have a hard copy in their
Right,
hand, they
well-
access it at the
They
city's
can look
website?
at the city's website,
Okay.
and we'll enter in, sign, if they want to sign it, we're happy to enter into it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other?
Is there any other questions of Mr. Baker rising out of that exchange? There being none, thank you very much, Mr. Baker. Okay, we have that concludes the public meeting. And at this time, we'd like to conduct the vote on item number 1. It's been, recommendation has been made and seconded. Yes, question?
I just have one question of Mr. Vincent. I believe Mr. Vincent is the one that told us about this agreement. Mr. Vincent, is it possible for them to have a hard copy of this? Like, how many people know about accessing the website, the city's website, to get that copy, so that you know, they don't probably even know about it? I would just, since you've been involved with this project right from the start, and you probably gained a few, almost, got a few more gray hairs from that. If you could enlighten us, I would be happy.
Yes. In fact, Mr. Mayor, through you to the councillor, the property protection plan is on the website, but it has to be presented to the homeowners, and they have to be provided with an offer to sign saying. I'm going to take slight exception to Mr. Baker's comment and say that it's Nyan's responsibility, not the city's, but I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to check that out in the morning to make sure. But in any event, let me just put it this way. All of the property owners have to be given the property protection plan and asked if they wish to sign same. If they refuse, if they say, no, I'm not going to sign it, that's their choice. But the property protection plan does provide a process, as Mr. Baker has outlined, whereby if I have an appraisal and you have a different one, a third one is normally put in place, and at that point in time, again, you come to a meeting of minds. If that can't be done, obviously council can be brought into the equation in the sense of saying, this is not working the way it was intended, so what can you do to help us? But right now, it's between the owner of the property, Nyan Energy Corp, Nyan Oil, and the protected property owners shown on the map. That's a part of the closing agreement. So I'm going to verify the process. It may be just slipping through the cracks here a little tiny bit, but it is in place. It was a part of the approved closing of this particular agreement, and that property protection plan was included in those documents. So getting a hard copy for Mr. Munger is not a problem. I'll certainly arrange for that to be done, as well as anybody else that wants it. I do want to be conscious that us being the negotiating party, the city is not the proponent here. It's Nyan Oil, and so we need to clarify that just to make sure we're not making any technical errors, but the protection plan does exist.
Councillor
Just one more, Mr. Mayor, and that's just, I understand that agreement is between that company and these individuals, but there are taxpayers. There are taxpayers, and I just want to make sure that that is available to them. That's all I want to make sure. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Cecil. Just to reiterate, back to the bylaw, the Kleinsmith Road, as it exists right now, with access to Mr. Monger's house, will not be stopped up and closed until such time as the new road is completely built and the MTO gives a new entry onto the 140. That was my biggest concern, was that in which way does it work? I don't want to take access away to his house right now. I want to make sure that he's got access in prior to it being closed.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the councillor, in fact, if you read the bylaw, you see that it continues to make reference to the fact that the Ontario Minister of Transport has to accept and dedicate a new Kleinsmith Road prior to this bylaw becoming effective. this is going to be a major process, because in my discussions with the Ministry of Transport, they haven't done one of these in quite a number of years down in this part of the country as far as a new access of this kind. Obviously, heavy industrial going in and out requires certain changes, perhaps even to Highway 140 from sight lines and those kinds of issues. And the way this is constructed is that Clinesmith Road's current access to Highway 140 stays open and only closes, let's say, the day off the other one opening. So the road will be built, it'll be paved, it'll meet our standards for the southern portion, and the northern portion will be industrial standards. And at that point in time, the road will close. But until then, if that takes 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, Clinesmith Road will stay open the way it is.
It just concerns me that Mr. Munger has not, or is not aware, has not seen this agreement that's so important to him. And I don't want to put you on the spot as a mediator. I just would like to maybe, is it possible for you to sit down with Mr. Munger tonight and Mr. Baker in the far room there, and just, can you show him that agreement that you might have? Oh, you've got a copy from Mr. Baker just now? Okay. Are you content with that?
Looks like an agreement. I could fair market value if I want to sell it to them, and that's my option, I guess. Or,
Well, I'm not. We're not in a position to advise you, but if that's clear, what he's just given you is clear. I want you to be informed of what your responsibilities may be and what Mr. Baker's responsibilities may be under that agreement.
I'll read it and I'll get back.
Okay. Well, perhaps rather than calling a vote on that at this very minute, I would ask Council's consent to put it at the bottom of the list for tonight. Councillor Bodner?
I'm not sure that that concern has anything to do with this. I'm just defer to Mr. Vincent, but I think we're obligated to pass this tonight as part of the original agreement, but I would wait to hear from Mr. Vincent. But
Mr. Mayor, through the Councillor Bodner, this particular closure is a part of the originally and already filed agreement with Nyan Oil Nile Inc. So is the property protection plan. I think what we have here is a question of the property protection plan not being as quickly perhaps presented to the homeowners as we would have liked. And Mr. Munger is quite correct. I mean, he's the one that's most directly affected by this potential Clinesmith Road closure. But the closure has already been approved by council in a previous process. This is setting the actual specifics of how that road will be closed by bylaw. This also starts certain portions of the original agreement, a timeline for the mortgage, a timeline for other issues. So my ask would be that it be dealt with as a part of the normal process. If there's an issue with the property protection plan, obviously we'll try to help the homeowners with that. But it has, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is that it has no legal impact upon this particular bylaw.
Okay. Any other comments, Councillor Butters?
I totally get what Mr. Vincent's saying. I think that the fact that the protection plan has come up as a part of this does tell us, though, that who else out there that is a homeowner has not received that document, and how important it is for them to receive that document in the coming weeks, really. And so if that kind of gives us the heads up to make sure that the residents affected, not just Mr. Munger, but anybody out there who should have that document, then they must have it. And I want to see that happen. And I understand about the Clinesmith Road thing, and I get that. But let's make sure that that other piece doesn't fall off the radar, because this is our taxpayers that, you know, we fought to get that in there. We fought to make sure that those folks had something that protected them. So let's make sure they have the documents in their hands, and then they get to decide what they do and how they deal with it. Thank you.
But as Mr. Wagner has pointed out, and sort of confirmed by Mr. Vincent, this is a separate issue. That we don't know whether the other of the 10 or 11 out there have this or not, but they're obviously not here this evening, and I think certainly Mr. Vincent will be vigilant to ensure that we have another gentleman here.
Yeah, I just like, I don't know, like I live on Fork Road, in that area, so if I look out my front window, you know, I can see this barn, you know, that again would affect my home. You know, but I don't know, I don't even know what is going on there, so if I am one of those affected, I would like to be.
Again, Mr. Rager? Mr. Vincent, did you get that directive? Sir, could I have your name and address, please?
I have to say thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know, gentlemen.
I'm Derek Roberts on 723 Fork Road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robbins. Okay, are we ready to call for the question on this recommendation?
Derek Roberts.
All those in favor?
Derek Roberts.
Carried. That was unanimously. My next item is item number 5. Angie Damaris, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Engineering and Operations Engineering Division Report Number 2015-131. Subject Information Report establishing a temporary entrance to Port Colborne quarries. Now, do I read the entire?
Yes, please.
Okay. A, that the Council of the City of Port Colborne endorse the proposed plan to allow Port Colborne Quarries, the proponent, a temporary entrance off the south side of second concession road at Chippewa Road. B, that staff be directed to monitor the activities within the travel route to ensure that the municipality's interests are protected.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Doucette. Discussion. Councillor Damaris.
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr.
Butters.
I want to talk on it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of questions. I read a disturbing comment in social media this weekend, and it really sent a message to me that I need to ask this question to get it out there in the public realm so that the public is aware of what's happening with this. So I would direct this to Mr. Hanson. Ron, what, if any, cost will the taxpayer bear if this motion is passed this evening?
Mr. Hanson.
Through Mr. Mayor, there's no cost to the municipality with this proposal. This is strictly a means to facilitate larger vehicles, trucks of 65 meters in length. They aren't able to negotiate the current entranceway that goes into Port Colborne Quarries. It's a temporary measure, approximately 18 months, my understanding, be put in place to accommodate the larger vehicles. There's no direct cost to the city. Any maintenance items, the city staff will monitor second concession. Second concession, as everybody knows, has been used as a truck route from the quarry's dock to the quarry for 30 years or more. We will monitor the condition of that road during this process. Any cost of that would be directly charged to Port Colborne Quarries.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. That's what I needed to know, just so that that's out there in the public and they're clearly aware of that.
Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was another email that was sent around, and some of the questions coming out of that email for, so I guess through you to Mr. Hanson. One of the questions was, would there be a flag person directing kind of the traffic of these oversized vehicles in and out of the quarry? There was a concern about when the school buses are on the road, would there be like some kind of accommodation if these big oversized vehicles and school buses, safety-wise, would they kind of be scheduled in a way that it would not interfere with our school bus movements? And would it be happening just during business hours or not? So kind of the hours of operation. And as well as, you said that this is anticipated to temporary things for about 18 months, is that correct? And then the last question is, does this temporary road have anything to do with the proposed cement factory that was proposed to go into the pit? Thanks.
Mr. Hanson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The proponent, John McClellan, on behalf of Port Colborne Quarries, is in attendance tonight, and I think it may be more appropriate. I think I can answer the questions, but it may be more appropriate for the proponent to answer some of these queries from council, just to confirm that we have the right information. So I'll defer to Mr. McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. McClellan. Could you push the red button there?
Good evening.
McClellan, can you respond to Councilor Butter's questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the oversized loads will have an OPP escort. It's mandated by the MTO as we're crossing the MTO road. The undersized or normal sized loads, they won't need it. They'll just be as any other truck traffic that's there. So that's that part. The temporary, I think a couple of councils asked me earlier, I handed out a handout. I had said up to 2 years. It probably will be 18 months, but when you asked me off the cuff, I just said 2 years. So just so you don't think you're getting bad information. And no, the proposed precast plant is not going in. So.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McClellan. Maybe
Any other questions?
Yeah, maybe you could just state.
It'll have an OPP escort. So, and we're during the MTO has regulations when you can cross. So it'll be during MTO hours.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Could I ask you to say that there may be more questions? Councillor Kenny, do you have a question of Mr. Hanson?
No, thank you, Mayor. Everything has been answered, and that's to my questions. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. On my left, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess through to Mr. McClellan and to staff, can we enter into a road use agreement that we do have a state of repair of the road now, and where we can have and monitor if anything happens to it, so that repairs can be taken as we go? That's one thing. Second of all, temporary is undefined to me. Can we have a date that ends the use of this entryway? And if your need to have the entryway continues past that date, maybe they'll have to come back to us and see if we shall continue with it. If you're saying 2 years, I don't mind having a 2-year defined time, and then after those 2 years, if you want to continue to do this, then we can have a maybe another agreement so that there is an expiry date on it. And I guess the last thing I'd like to know is, Councilor Butters asked hours of operation to do this, and will there be any work done on these blades while they're in the yard, or is it just strictly storage and there won't be anything done to them at all?
There will be, it's scheduled to be strictly storage. I would imagine, having gone through this, if somebody bangs or bumps or dents one of these blades, there will be a repair done on site before you ship them back out. We don't anticipate that happening, but there's a guy named Murphy that lives everywhere in the world, so it may happen, right? But it would be, there'll be guys down there, they have to spin over some of the parts to make sure that the bearings don't settle out. There will be some ongoing maintenance work in there as just to keep things right, but no, there's not going to be a everyday, or it's not anticipated to be that way.
Thank you, Mr. McClellan. Any other questions on my left? Any other questions arising out of discussion with Mr. McClellan? Mr. Elliott?
No, I'm fine.
Mr. Hanson? Thank you, Mr. McClellan.
Just through your Mayor to Ron, can we make sure that the road is in rehabilitated shape as we go along?
In response, Mr. Mayor, this roadway, as I said before, has been used for this particular purpose, heavy truck traffic, for quite a number of years now. Our part in this is that we've agreed in meeting with Port Colborne Quarries to agree to monitor the use of the road, and we'll certainly do that. It's certainly built to a high standard in terms of truck traffic. We probably don't need a road use bylaw, given that it is an open used road at all times, but we would agree with Port Colborne Quarries to monitor the roadway on a regular basis during the term of this temporary entrance.
There being no further questions or discussion, I'd call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item is item number 12. Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Committee items. I went the wrong way. Planning and Development Report number 2015-123, subject notice of passing of Niagara Catholic District School Board Education Development Charges, that this report be received for information purposes.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Bodner. Go ahead, Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. When I saw this, I was extremely upset. The reason being is that we've just had a moratorium on our development charges to stimulate any kind of development that we can have. And then to have a school board come in and say, well, since the room is there, we're going to turn around and we're going to plop it in. That's number one. Number two reason is that these development charges, the way I read them, and maybe Mr. Aquilina can correct me on this, happen to apply to every building that will be built in Port Colborne, including, I believe, commercial buildings. Every one of them. Okay, granted, we don't have a lot, but that doesn't matter. Whether you're a Catholic supporter or a public school supporter, you're going to pay that charge. Then we have the other rumor I'm hearing is that the public school board is also going to charge. So now all developers and all purchasers of homes are now going to pay 2 development charges on every building that is new in this city. Not only 1, but 2, if the second one comes true. And then the one that really upsets me is the fact that all this money is going to go in a pot to build a school in Grimsby, baby, or in Niagara-on-the-Lake somewhere. Not even in Port Colborne. We're going to pay it, but they're going to use the money for out down there. Probably. Because there isn't any plan. If you look at their plans, there isn't any plan of any kind to build any new schools here in Port Colborne. None. So these development charges are going to be used somewhere else. Now, this upsets me considerably, but I have asked Mr. Aquilina to maybe give us some possible answers. One of the questions I have is, do we have any choice? Can we deny this? If I'm right, the answer is no. We as a city do not have a choice, period. Number 2, is there a way of delineating these charges so that it goes to the proper supporter? So the public school supporter would pay, or the Catholic school supporter would pay, so that every development at least only gets 1 charge, not 2. And I don't believe we have that ability either. So I don't know. I had some questions, and I believe Mr. Aquilina can give me those answers, and I've had a chat with him already. I think it's very important that we make them understand that with the stimulation that we were trying to acquire here, what they've done is they've put probably a stop to any stimulation we were going to do. The other thing that bothers me is the fact that even more than that is in a year and a half, our own development charges are going to go back on, and it's going to look like a brand new charge. We're going to have egg on our face. Because it's going to look like we're charging something we have never charged before. Because all of a sudden they're going to be charging that much more. I really think the school board saw an opportunity here and jumped into it, and is now making us, is probably going to make us look like fools later on in the year. And it bothers me. because it's pinning us against them when they should be working with us, not against us. And I see this as working against us.
Perhaps we'll let Mr. Aquilina respond. Councilor Kenny?
Yeah, I would just like him, if he's going to respond to those things. Mr. Aquilina, could you add in, how are they planning to be the collector of this? Like who's going to be collecting that? And it better not be us. It better not be us.
Well, have Mr. Aquilina respond.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to both Councillor Doucette and Kenny. I'll start by going backwards in time. Back in May of 2015, there was an information report to council that kind of outlined what the District School Board of Niagara was proposing to do. And they were looking to collect $245 for each residential unit that was being built. There wasn't much information as to what they were proposing. There was a series of meetings that took place, and through the process, they then moved forward. Council then received a report that recommended that, one, we object to the development charge, but actually have it in effect to match the moratorium that council put in place. Two, that we get the costs to administer the development charge, give us some money to actually administer this, because there is a cost to municipal staff to collect and return the monies to the Catholic Board. And we also recommended that they honor our exemptions under our development charges bylaw that would not apply this to community improvement project areas. The school board then, in its wisdom, ignored everything that we commented on, and the only thing that they did do, because they heard from other municipalities as well, they then decided, let's reduce the $245 charge down to $172. The development charge is only applicable to residential units. So commercial, industrial, institutional is exempt. It's only for residential units. And as Councillor Doucette mentioned, back when they were originally proposing this, there are two counties within the region. There's the Lincoln County and there's the Welland County. We belong to the Welland County. And the charges are to go towards the purchase of land and the development of the site to two schools in South Niagara Falls. So Councillor Doucette is quite correct. If a residential unit is built in Port Colborne, it will then go into the school board's kitty to then be used to build schools outside of Port Colborne. So in essence, costs to build here would be used for a school in Niagara Falls. Same goes with the Lincoln County. They're proposing to build a school in Lincoln, Grimsby. They're not sure yet. Same thing. Everyone within that county is going to pay for a school that's being built only in that selected municipality. Do we have any choice? The development charges is under the Education Act, Section 9. So that provincial legislation empowers the school boards to actually put a charge in place. Council could choose to appeal it. I'm not a gambling kind of man. Certain things I am. I don't know what the success rate would be. I can inform council that the town of Fort Erie has had direction for staff to appeal, and I am aware that they're pursuing this, and I'm aware that the town of Pelham also are considering to appeal. It's going to be something that would be before the OMB, Ontario Municipal Board, to determine. There's costs associated with that. The question about the delineation, I think I touched upon that. Other municipalities, namely town of Fort Erie, I do know that one of the requests that they had made was to actually have those charges only collected in the municipalities that the school was going to be built in. That was ignored. The collection, again, under the Education Act, we're it. We're not compensated at all. Same thing with the regional development charge. We do that on behalf of the region. The only thing we would actually get, and it won't be very much, if we collect a charge, we could then hold it in trust and collect the interest on that. But it wouldn't even be worth much at all.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor, I
Mr.
hope I answered all the questions, but I'm all ears.
Councillor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dan again. Could we explore the idea of joining together with other municipalities and collectively going and challenging this Section 9 of the Education Act? Because seriously, this is ridiculous. Putting money, taking development charges and using it in your own community, yes, but no other way.
Mr. Mayor, if the direction of council is to actually pursue that, we will get on the phone tomorrow with the town of Fort Erie and the town of Pelham to join forces, excuse me. If that's what the direction of council would be, there is a cost to do that.
Councillor Bodnar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I was on that same wavelength as Angie, but whether this is too late to jump in because Fort Erie is going to do it, Pelham is thinking of doing it. Here's a task for our new CAO. At the CAO's meetings, how about we bring up that when an issue is region-wide, why don't we talk about this before, because this affects everybody, not just us or Fort Erie or whatever. Why don't we kind of have a standard thing that at least something's put out and said, hey, we're thinking of doing this. Is anybody else in? Everybody's sitting back waiting for some other poor municipality to do it, and then we'll recoup the benefits if they do get it. But, just as a general principle, I think we should be looking at that option. So I just asked the CAO to bring that up at the next CAO's meeting. Whether we go ahead now with Fort Erie, I'd wait to hear from other councillors on that too.
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Bodnar. We can appeal. The appeal period is 40 days after the bylaw was approved. The bylaw was approved on June 22nd. We can actually put the appeal into the OMB by August, early August. It would be okay to do so. The question about partnering and talking, I've had numerous discussions, more than once, with the town of Fort Erie. Their question was, what is the city of Port Colborne going to do? I said, I can't give you an answer because it reports on council's agenda with an option to pursue an appeal. So, as I mentioned, I'll get back on the phone with whatever the direction of council is. So we've talked as the area planners, we're all on the same page that this stinks, excuse my language, but we're only staff, right? The importance needs to come from, the impetus needs to come from council.
Questions? Councillor Kenny, then Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Aquilina. Dan, the town of Fort Erie is getting a brand new school. They just bought property across from their municipal office. It was a golf course, and I think and a putting green or whatever, and I think they paid, if I'm not mistaken, from the owner, I think they paid him $1.8 million for that property to build their new school.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kenny, that was for a public school, public high school. This is for the Catholic school
Is
board.
not the public school thinking the same thing, no?
I have not received any indication that the public board yet
Okay.
is contemplating that.
No,
If you went against Catholic.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ackerman.
Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. If you look carefully to all councillors, number 16 and number 17, which I also lifted, they're all connected. Okay? It's the region's response to the school board in what they would like the school board to do to be able to activate this or whatever, and so on and so forth. And, it asks that Appendix 1 be received and supported. And if we're going to challenge it, I don't believe we can receive and support those. But when we get there, I mean, we can definitely have a more discussion about it. The bottom line is they're taking monies from our area, and they're using these monies in other areas. And if we're going to stimulate any kind of construction that we would like to have here in Port Colborne, and they jump into the void that we put in, then I think they need to know that we won't be playing ball with them. We will not be playing ball. We're going to try to find a way not to play ball. And then the worst part about it is that we are not only going to manage their collection, we're also going to make sure that we have to collect it and hand it out. We have no choice according to the legislation. And I want every citizen here in Port Colborne to realize that your tax dollars, if you buy a new building here in Port Colborne right now, is going to go for a school in Niagara Falls, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we're going to do our best to try to make sure you have something to do about it, but right now, the way it's written, there's nothing we can do about it. And that is wrong, totally wrong.
Councillor Elliott? I'm sorry, Councillor Butters. Councillor Butters, Councillor Elliott has deferred to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I kind of go by the old adage, if you do nothing, then you can expect nothing. So to my idea of, you know, to have any kind of effect on this whatsoever, if that's possible, then, you know, you gotta step up to the plate and fight back. And that's what I think we should be doing, is stepping up to the plate and fighting back in whatever method or avenue is open to us.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott.
You good on that side?
Yeah, we're good. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I'm not in support of this at all, except that it's not taxes that they collect. It's a one-time development charge for anybody that builds new on new buildings. But I guess the bigger question is, what would the appeal consist of? What are we going to challenge at the OMB? Are we going to challenge the validity of the Education Act, or are we challenging the breadth of how far they're going to levy these development charges throughout Niagara on builds that are happening in other areas? I'm just kind of, where are we going to mount a challenge, and what are we challenging to the OMB?
Mr. Mayor, I think could be a three-pronged approach. A, we're not happy with the actual rate that they came up with and the methodology that they used to come up with $172. B, it could be the delineation of where that development charge is applicable to. As Councillor Doucette mentioned, why does Port Colborne need to fund something that's outside of its jurisdiction? And three, actually have them honor our exemption areas. Same things that we've outlined in our appeal previous report. Well, I should say not our report, sorry, our issues that we had raised and we had notified the board of that they chose to ignore. And it could be one stronger voice if we team up with other municipalities that share the same concerns that we had.
Okay, at this time, rather than calling the question on this issue, that I would hope there might be a motion to defer this issue to our next council meeting, allowing you to consult and perhaps our CAO to consult with their counterparts in other municipalities within the region to perhaps consider a joint approach to both of these bylaws, because the Niagara Catholic District School Board is before us tonight, and I would assume it's a very good bet that the District School Board of Niagara will be along very shortly. So it's an issue that we're going to have to address, and I agree with you, it's a united effort. So if anyone is interested in bringing forward a motion of deferral to the next council meeting, Madam Clerk, are we okay with this procedure? Yes, Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not putting forward a motion of deferral right now, but I just wonder if maybe there should be a motion go forward about seeking an appeal or entering into discussions with the other communities, or some kind of staff direction.
But the
something
motion of
rather
deferral will
formal.
give us that
Yeah.
breather to 2 weeks to consider it, and then we may come down
And then bring it
with a
back to the
strong-
next council?
Yes. Councillor Barker?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just concerned about timing, and I guess Mr. Aguilina would have to comment on that. By the time we get it back, is there enough time if it comes back to the next council meeting, or would direction now to pursue it, which you probably will anyway? So just a comment on the timing, Mr. Mayor, just so we don't get caught in just a few days to be able to do it.
Mr. Aquilina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, once there's direction from council tonight, as I mentioned, we'll get on the phone tomorrow, because we actually had a call today from the town of Fort Erie again. So we'll make that contact tomorrow, and we will have enough time to bring it back to council for consideration on July 27th. As I mentioned, there's a 40-day appeal period. Our comments are in, so it gives us the door open to actually put the appeal in. So it's just a matter of the direction from council tonight and us getting on the phone to make contact with the other municipalities.
Okay. If there's consensus here, then we perhaps entertain a motion for referral to staff and to come back by the July 27th meeting. Councillor Desmarais,
I would put forward a motion to refer.
Thank you.
To referral.
Is there a second to that motion? Councillor Doucette? Oh, if I get the motion on the floor, then that's it. You have to call for the vote.
That's why I'm saying no, I'm not saying.
Okay. All right, gentlemen and ladies, what do you wish to do with it? Do I call the question on the original recommendation?
I have one more request.
I want to go to staff.
Councillor Elliott had his hand up first.
Would it be better if we just, basically, item number 12 and item number 16 are just basically notices that it's moving forward? I mean, we could receive 12 and 16 because they're just basically, it's the notice from the region and the notice from staff that this is going forward. So we'll receive those two reports. 17 is the region's ask for support. We can deny the support for that and then have a staff direction to meet with the town of Fort Erie and the town of Pelham to discuss a partnership going forward for appeal to the OMB. Because the first two, 12 and 16, are basically just notices that this is going to go on, and 17 is the item that asks for support from the Niagara region. So turn that down, just receive the two notices, and then direct Dan to have a conversation with the two other municipalities, if that works for everybody.
Councillor Doucette?
Well, the other comment I have is that if 3 of the smaller communities right now are objecting like we are, and they are, then why aren't we sending out a letter to a lot of the other communities and saying, are you willing to jump in with us and let's go to it as a group and see what they say? I don't know if that's worth discussing, but I would like to see some kind of a letter going out saying, this is what we're considering, Fort Erie and Pelham are already doing it, we want to do it, do you join us? And see what other communities say. I would like to give that direction to staff as well, to see if we can't get more partners in here. The more partners we have, the stronger the objection is going to be.
Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, what I'd like to do is this. Put this motion aside, whether that means that we refer it to staff for further action, but no matter what, that we give direction to staff to follow up, meet with the other communities involved. Also, take a look around and see who else might want to jump on this action, but definitely challenge this action and make sure that our voice is heard. We, as Dan, as you've said, our points are already out there. They've been, they're made. That sort of saves us a few steps. But simply send this to staff with that direction. And if that's a motion of referral to staff, along with that direction, then that's how I'd like to do it. Ashley could maybe advise on the best way to accomplish that.
Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion before us is to receive. And I believe, like Councillor Elliott said, we can receive 12 and we can receive 16, but with the direction to staff that they come back, because Dan's already been talking to these municipalities, so see how many we can have on board. But just to receive them is fine, but to deny 17, because we're not supporting it. We're not in support of it.
We haven't gotten 17. And 16 wasn't pulled.
So, it was pulled.
No, you didn't pull that.
Oh,
17 was pulled. But I heard 17 came.
well,
16's already been restarted.
as received. Just
16's
received.
already gone through.
Our clerk is going to provide us some direction.
Good.
Defer, refer.
That's why I put it in.
Madam Clerk?
Good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To receive the report for information purposes is actually a substantive decision. So it effectively means that council is taking no action on the report. So if council's desire is actually to seek options or to consider an appeal and potentially look for partners in that, it would be preferable to refer it back to staff to allow them the opportunity to report back and contact the other municipalities.
Thank you.
And we would refer items 16, 17, and 12. Refer them all.
No.
Or do you want to accept 12 and 16?
12 and 16 only.
16's been dealt, 12 and 17.
16's been done.
It was never lifted,
No.
was it?
16 was in the We've already accepted.
16.
Okay, that's
Okay.
right. I missed that one.
Okay. Can someone make the required?
And you did.
I did.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Madam Butters. Any further discussion or question? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Let's move on.
Alderman Doucette, you pulled item number 17.
I did.
Now we have to defeat 17, right?
Right.
Are we not doing a second motion now?
17 gets defeated.
How are we doing a motion on 12 to make them refer back?
I apologize. Region of Niagara, proposed education development charges by the Niagara Catholic District School Board, CSD Report 56, 2015. Request for support of the principles outlined in Appendix 1, that the correspondence received from the Region of Niagara re-proposed education development charges by the Niagara Catholic District School Board requesting support of the principles outlined in Appendix 1 be received and supported.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councilor Demery? Questions or comments? Alderman Doucette?
I want this defeated. At least for now. If we're going to challenge it, we can't support this and challenge it at the same time. We can't do both. You know, it's like when you know, the ex-mayor used to say you can't suck and blow at the same time, and that's what we would be doing here. So we need to defeat this for now, and then go on our way to do what it is we have directed our staff to do. And that's what I recommend, that we defeat this and then move on.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No other speakers? Then we call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. It's defeated.
What? We can defeat that.
I am advised by the clerk that it would be preferable to receive this motion just for information. Councilor? Thank you, Councilor Butters. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Kenny seconds that. Are we clear to call the question? Gentlemen, are you clear? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councilor Doucette, number 23.
Municipality of Tweed Disaster Relief Committee request for financial support to assist homeowners due to serious flooding around Stokoe Lake and adjoining waterways during April 2015. That the correspondence from the Municipality of Tweed Disaster Relief Committee requesting financial support to assist homeowners due to serious flooding around Stokoe Lake and adjoining waterways in April 2015 be received for information.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Seconder for the recommendation? Councilor Danch? Speakers? Councilor Doucette?
The reason I brought this up is that I'm not looking for a large amount of money, but I believe that we, as a neighbor within the Ontario community, would help some of our neighbors in some way, shape, or form. I'm looking at a couple of $100 or something like that to send them. The reason being is that I remember in '77 when we got hit here. If that mentality would have existed, it would have helped considerably. It didn't exist at the time. And I think that we need to show that we are prepared to help the people around us that are in need. And then maybe one day when we are in need, it will be reciprocated. So I'm not looking for a large amount of money. If you read the report, it appears they have about $40,000 missing out of the funds that they've received from everywhere to be able to help everyone that is in serious need because of this flood. And if every community in Ontario gave $200, I believe they would reach that very quickly and very easily. So just food for thought. I mean, if council says no, council says no. But I thought it was worth at least an attempt to bring it up and to treat all our Ontario cities in a neighborly fashion. And that's what this would do.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. Any other comments or questions? Discussion? Councilor Bodnar?
Almost hate to wade into this one, but besides it's a disaster, this isn't any different than any other organization coming, asking for funds, and we just don't do that. You know, we have to either have a plan like the hydro grants or some form of money to fund it. And I think for a lot of years we haven't got involved in something like this. Not that they're not all good causes, but I'd have a hard time supporting this no matter how much money is requested, and it's been $100 or $200, but it just, I think it's going beyond what we've kind of set as our plan for giving out funds, and I just wouldn't support it.
Councilor Doucette, you're suggesting $200. Mr. Sinnes, where would these monies come from? We haven't obviously budgeted for it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at the moment we don't budget for any types of grants that, as Councilor Bodnar mentioned, most of our grant requests now go through and are referred to the hydro funds for the granting process, where there's the board basically goes through a whole grant process of determining what grants are provided. So at this point we don't have those funds, but obviously if it's council's direction, we would have to find somewhere as to where the funds would have to come from. But at this point in time, there's no funding available as budgeted by council in the 2015 budget.
Councilor Doucette?
I just had a bird just speak in my ear here, and Councilor Danch was the bird, and it makes a lot of sense. What if we make a request through council to the citizens of Port Colborne to see if we can collect some funds to help them out. And we would manage it, and then whatever came in, we would send to them. That could be another way of doing it that probably would involve all the citizens, and I think that would be, I like that idea. Never thought of it, and you know, he just happened to say that, and it made a lot of sense. He chirped very well. It makes a lot of sense to me. So, you know, that's another possibility.
Mr. Sness, the logistic of this, are these doable?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do. It is possible for us to receive the funds as long as they're, the request is, when the funds do come in, that they're specifically donating towards this disaster relief fund, and we would control those funds, and then once we do have a number of dollars available, then we would send it off to the municipality. No different than we receive donations towards, you know, certain things that the city is actually doing, and we keep track of those funds, and then we put them towards that specific project. So, and actually, I think we did that similar type thing a number of years ago. I think Councillor Bodner had it. I forget which. It was a fundraiser for I forget what it was. But anyways, we did do that once before, where we did collect the funds, and when we put them on Haiti? It might have been Haiti, yeah. Yeah, so we have done that. We can minister that.
Well, Councillor Kenny, then Councillor Butters.
My brilliant counselor beside me suggested that, Peter, you know those big tip jars we get when you have canal days? We could use that money.
The tips from Canal Day.
Yeah, the tips.
Some.
Some, not all of it, but.
Councillor Butters?
Possible.
Councillor Butters?
Well, considering my cousin lives in the municipality of Tweed, Joey, if you're watching this, I hope you're, you know, not doing the backstroke. I think as an individual, I agree. It's a good thing to contribute, and I certainly would, because, you know, I really love my cousin, so.
Okay. Councillor Bodner, thank you.
Just to bring this to an end, I think Councillor Dance should be in charge of the fundraising. His idea, and that'll teach you for speaking up. And I would be against taking those tips from Canal Days because people don't know what they think they're putting that tip in to support Canal Days, and unless you have, you know, an advertising campaign and something, you know, you can't just take people's money for something other that what they think they're donating to. So I don't think that would be appropriate. But Councillor Dance wants to sell T-shirts or whatever he wants to do, that'd be great.
Okay, let's Councillor Doucette.
Can I suggest then that we defeat this motion and put a motion in that would allow and invite citizens of Port Colborne to come to City Hall and indicate that they are donating something towards the Tweed Relief Fund, if we want to call it that, and go from there. So the first thing we have to do is defeat this, and then the next motion after that would be to create this and allow the city staff to manage it.
Okay, I'll call the question on item number 23. Looking for direction, Madam Clerk? What's the preferred procedure?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Consistent with my comments previously this evening, if you would, if council's will is to do something alternative to the receive and file, then I would recommend that you defeat that motion and then entertain a new one.
Okay, thank you for that direction. All those in favor of item number 23 recommendation? All those opposed? Recommendation is defeated. Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. New recommendation is that we create a Tweed Relief Fund that will be managed through staff down here in City Hall and invite all citizens of Port Colborne to come to City Hall on the first floor, and if they are willing to donate, then please do so.
Is there a seconder for Councillor Doucette's motion? Councillor Desmarais? Any further questions or discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Butters, item number 26.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see. R. Bruce Smith, Secretary Treasurer, Niagara Central Airport Commission, Niagara Central, Dorothy Rungling Airport, regarding request for support to have the regional municipality of Niagara take over the operation of Niagara Central Airport Commission, Niagara Central, Dorothy Rungling Airport. That the correspondence from R. Bruce Smith, Secretary Treasurer of the Niagara Central Airport Commission, Niagara Central, Dorothy Rungling Airport, requesting support to have the regional municipality of Niagara take over operation of the Niagara Central Airport Commission / Niagara Central Dorothy Rungling Airport be received for information.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Bodnar? Any questions or comment? Councillor Butters.
Actually, I think it's important for us to defeat the received for information and put a new motion on the floor that says that we would support. There's actually a motion in Mr. Smith's information, and we should be supporting that motion. It will put the region on notice that the 4 municipalities that currently fund Niagara Central, it's going to put them on notice that we're not taking a back seat in the south end of this region. Either they have to look at it as a infrastructure kind of a deal where you have 2 airports and fund them or not, but I don't think we should be asleep at the switch on this. And I know that this is going forward to the other municipalities of Pelham, Wainfleet, and Welland, and looking for that support to send this to the region. So that's my pitch.
Any further comment? Councillor Elliott, do you wish to make a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll definitely support the motion, and I think that we really need to get Welland and Pelham and Wainfleet on board with this. Having followed what transpired in St. Catharines with their motion, which was unanimously supported by their council, their agreement between St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and Niagara-on-the-Lake doesn't expire until 2026 with Niagara District Airport. Their problem is that they're a capital funding shortage, and that's what they faced. And I think that's what drove their council to approach Niagara, the region of Niagara, to upload the airport to them. That, in fact, would turn and put a burden on the people in South Niagara that already support an airport, which really doesn't make a lot of sense why we're going to support 2 of them. So, yeah, I guess turnabout is fair play. If you're going to upload one, upload them both and spread the cost out amongst the region. You can't say that one airport supports more than the other does throughout the region. If we're going to do it for one, we'll do it for both. I realize that we need some infrastructure work at the Dorothy Rungling Airport. So in fact, it would be better. It would kind of smooth out any increase to taxpayers to spread it out, just like they want to do up there. I know that years ago, the district airport in St. Catharines expanded their runway with hopes that with a longer runway, they would increase traffic with larger planes coming in. I'm not so sure that that happened. So they're trying different avenues to drive revenue through the airport. That's where their infrastructure shortfall is. So I wholeheartedly support this. I'm glad to see this, that it was on the agenda for tonight, because if it wasn't, I was going to bring up a motion just like this, but Councillor Kenny had emailed me and said, don't worry, we got it all under control. So I left it to you guys, so I'm glad to see it, and I will wholeheartedly support that and pass it off to the other 3 municipalities that we're in partnership with that run the airport.
Any further comment? Councilor Butters?
So just to be clear, we need to defeat this particular one and then put a new motion on the floor.
Councilor Elliott, that's not quite what you wanted to do, but...
Oh, no, I got the question. Yeah.
Okay.
So the motion on here is not part of,
We have to make a new one because
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, are you ready for the question?
All the questions.
All those in favor of recommendation number 26? All those in favor? All those opposed? Defeated. Councilor Butters, do you have a new recommendation, motion to put forward?
The motion that Mr. Smith had sent over, and this is what I'm proposing. Whereas municipalities of the Corporation of the City of St. Catharines, the Corporation of the Town of Niagara on the Lake, and the Corporation of the City of Niagara Falls have recently passed resolutions requesting that the Regional Municipality of Niagara, the region, assume the operation and control of Niagara District Airport, the NDA, whereas the Niagara Central Dorothy Rungling Airport, NCDRA, based on a report prepared by David Archibald dated November 2014, will generate an economic impact of $40 million over the period 2004 to 2018 in the Niagara region, and whereas since the NCDRA and the NDA, while having similar operations, also have operations that complement, with an E, and support each other such that together they provide a full-service airport system. And whereas the NCDRA is important to the Niagara South Economic Development Plan, and whereas the NCDRA is currently the home base for approximately 50 aircraft, 5 businesses, the Air Cadet Eagle Squadron, 8 existing hangars, and 3 approved hangars and is expanding, and whereas the NCDRA has a substantial room for expansion in the number of both private and commercial hangars, and whereas the NCDRA attracts upwards of 10,000 tourists to the Niagara region on an annual basis as a result of its flying, parachuting, flight training, and related operations running out of the NCDRA, and whereas it is the opinion of the Niagara Central Airport Commission that based on the foregoing, that it would be prudent for the region to assume control of and operation of both the NDA and the NCDRA simultaneously as a single Niagara region airport system. Now therefore it is resolved that the Commission requests that its 4 municipal stakeholders, namely the Corporation of the City of Welland, Corporation of the City of Port Colborne, Corporation of the Town of Pelham, and the Corporation of the Township of Wainfleet, pass this resolution in the format attached.
Everyone understand the motion? Is there a seconder for that motion?
Thanks, B. Kenny.
Councilor B. Kenny? Any discussion, comment, questions? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor of the motion as read? Those opposed? It's carried.
Thank you.
Are there any notices of motion this evening? There being none, I'd call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Danch, seconded by Councilor Doucette. All those in favor? Carried. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Council 22-15 for Monday, July 13, 2015 to order. Are there any addendum items to be added, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Motion to confirm the agenda. Motion moved by Councilor Danch, seconded by Councilor Bodnar to confirm the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? There being, Councilor. Go ahead, Councilor.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. I have a direct pecuniary interest in camera item B as I represent the brokerage that has the property in question listed.
To deal with the CMT lots, you want to declare that one as well? Oh, yeah, okay. Any other disclosures of interest? I will be declaring myself personally on the CMT lots, but we'll do that in the in-camera session. Anyway, duly noted. Adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of Council 20-15 held on June 22nd, 2015. Motion to adopt those minutes. Moved by Councilor Kenny, seconded by Councilor Demaray. Any comments or questions? Being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Next item is the adoption of minutes of special meeting of Council 21-15 held on June 29th, 2015. Motion to adopt those minutes, moved by Councilor Bodnar, seconded by Councilor Doucette. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, we have a determination of items requiring separate discussion. Councilor Doucette?
Just a question to the clerk through you, sir. That, I mean, we've changed quite a few of these motions, so I gather within the present structure, if we look at the agenda, these are the motions that we had before. So are we accepting the changed motions now, or are we accepting the motions that are on paper? And the reason I'm doing that is I'm trying to be making sure no changes that we've made are going to not be approved. So I want to make sure those changes are there.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city's practice is that if there's an amendment or a change to a recommendation during the committee of the whole meeting, that is then captured. So the recommendations are approved as amended.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure.
With that being said, it would appear that there are no items requiring special consideration. Then I would call for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate consideration. Moved by Councilor Doucette, second by Councilor Butters. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to proclamations. We have a proclamation regarding Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, moved by Councilor Kenny, seconded by Councilor Bodnar. Whereas during the month of September, Prostate Cancer Canada shares information and promotes awareness about prostate cancer. And whereas prostate cancer is the most common cancer among Canadian men, now therefore I, Mayor John Mullen, proclaim September 2015 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Port Colborne. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. You have before you minutes of the Port Colborne Public Library Board meeting on May 5th, 2015. We have a motion to accept those minutes. Moved by Councilor Butters, seconded by Councilor Bodnar. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Opposed? Well, that was unanimous, so it is carried. Okay. Minutes of the Canal Lakes Advisory Committee meeting on May 20th, 2015. Motion to approve those minutes. Councilor Butters, seconded by Councilor Doucette. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Consideration of bylaws. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 62598515 being a bylaw to stop up and close a portion of Klein-Smith Road and widening of the untraveled portion of Klein-Smith Road and to extend Klein-Smith Road. Bylaw 62608615 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Dynamic Industrial Service. 2649015 being a bylaw to appoint a deputy fire chief. Bylaw 62659115 being a bylaw to close temporarily sections of specified streets and parking to vehicular traffic for the purposes of 2015 Canal Days Festival. And finally, bylaw 62659215 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of July 13th, 2015.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor, go ahead. Elliot?
Can I just ask one question? With regards to the bylaws, when we say to appoint a member to the committees and then to appoint a deputy fire chief, how come we don't name the people?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's in title only. The bylaws actually name the individuals.
Good point, Mr. Elliott. We're going to vote on these in bulk. All those in favor? Barbara Butters, I thought you moved that. And a seconder, Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? They're carried. Okay, sure. We have a motion to go into closed session. Our clerk will read that motion note this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters: the minutes of the closed session portion of the June 22nd, 2015 council meeting, a verbal report from the Director of Planning and Development concerning the potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And item C, verbal report from the Director of Community and Corporate Services regarding a human resources matter pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and subsection 239(2)D, labor relations or employee negotiations.
All those over, Councillor Butters, seconder, Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. At this point, we'll move into a closed session.